The house that rebuilds itself, a house that shouldn't exist. I first heard about the house from an old newspaper article. It was buried deep in the archives, barely a few paragraphs long. A Victorian mansion on the edge of town. It had burned down twice. Yet, every time, within a matter of days, the house was back, rebuilt exactly as it was before. Same towering structure, same rotting wood, same dark windows that seemed to watch you. And yet, no construction crews were ever seen, no permits were ever filed. It was just there, as if it refused to stay gone. The dare I wouldn't have cared about any of this, until my friends dared me to spend the night inside. It's just an old house, they said. We'll even wait outside in case you get scared. I laughed it off. Easy. I had no idea what I was walking into. Inside the house, I pushed open the heavy wooden doors. They groaned like something alive. The air inside was thick, damp, as if the house itself was breathing. The furniture was perfectly arranged, as if someone had just been living there. But the dust was thick. The wallpaper peeled in long, curling strips, and something about the walls, they looked new, fresh, like they had been placed yesterday. I felt my stomach tighten. Something was wrong. The whispering walls. As I stepped further in, the floorboards creaked under my feet, not in the way old houses do, but in a way that sounded too deep, like something was shifting beneath them. Then I heard a whisper, faint, distant, but very, very real. I spun around. No one. The doors were still wide open. My friends were outside, but I could feel it, something watching me, listening. The house was changing. I walked toward the staircase, ran my fingers along the wooden railing. It was smooth, no dust, no signs of age. Then, in my peripheral vision, something moved. I turned, heart racing. The hallway behind me, it wasn't the same. The wallpaper was different. The doors were rearranged. I took a step back, my breathing sharp and shallow. The house was rebuilding itself. Around me. The escape attempt, I ran back toward the front door. But the hallway was longer, stretching, twisting. The entrance that was once 10 feet away now felt miles out of reach. The whispering grew louder, merging into something else, a low groan, a pulse. The house was alive, and it did not want me to leave. The final room, I sprinted through the shifting corridors. Doors appeared and vanished. Rooms rearranged themselves as I turned corners. And then, I saw it. A room without a door, just an open, gaping entrance. The air inside was thick, like stepping into a living organ. And in the center of that room, a chair, old, wooden, but brand new. And on that chair, a figure, motionless, waiting. The truth, I stepped closer. My body screamed to turn back, but something compelled me forward. The figure looked exactly like me. Same clothes, same shoes, same expression of pure horror. Then it smiled and whispered, "Your turn." The house groaned, and I fell. The aftermath, I woke up outside, on the lawn. My friends were shaking me, their faces pale. I gasped for air, looked behind me. The house was there, untouched, like nothing had happened. But I knew the truth. I could still feel it. The house hadn't let me go. It had just let me out. For now. Because the house always rebuilds itself, and one day, it will call me back. The sound of chains dragging in my basement, moving into the wrong house. I never wanted a house with a basement. There's something about them, cold, dark, forgotten spaces buried beneath the earth, that always felt wrong. But when I found this house, old, cheap, and sitting on the market for years, I ignored my instincts. The basement was just a storage space, I told myself. Nothing to worry about. I couldn't have been more wrong. The first night, I heard it on my very first night. I had just settled into bed when the sound reached me. A slow, heavy dragging. Metal on concrete, chains. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe a trick of the wind or my mind playing games. But then it happened again. Scrape, drag, clank. I sat up, my pulse hammering. It was coming from the basement. Something was down there. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and crept toward the basement door. It was locked, just as I had left it. But the sound was louder now. Chains. Dragging. Moving. Something was down there. I placed my hand on the doorknob, and suddenly the noise stopped. The air felt thick, like the house itself was holding its breath. I took a step back. Locked or not, I wasn't going down there. Not tonight. The strange history of the house. The next morning, I went online. I had to know, had something happened in this house before I moved in? It didn't take long to find out. Decades ago, this house belonged to a man named Elias Grayson, a reclusive, bitter old man with no family. People in town avoided him. Some claimed they saw strange lights coming from his basement at night. Others swore they heard screams. Then one day, he disappeared, vanished without a trace, and the house had been empty ever since, until me. The second night, I told myself the noises were just my imagination, the power of suggestion. But the next night, the sound came back, louder, more urgent, scrape, drag, clank. It wasn't random anymore. It was rhythmic, like someone was pacing, dragging chains back and forth. Trapped, I clenched my fists. This was my house now, and I needed to know what was in that basement. Opening the door, I stood at the basement door, heart pounding. This time, I had a crowbar. The lock was old, rusted. One good hit, and the door swung open. The air rushed past me, cold and damp. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness. The stairs creaked beneath me as I stepped down, and then I saw them. The chains that move on their own. They were hanging from the ceiling, thick, rusted, looped together like they once held something, or someone. I stepped closer, running my fingers over the metal, and they moved. Not a lot, just a small sway, like something had just been pulling on them. My breath hitched. I was not alone. The voice in the dark. Then I heard it. A whisper. Low. Hoarse, coming from the farthest corner of the basement. I turned my flashlight, and the chain snapped tight, pulled by invisible hands. A shudder ran through me, and then, just above a whisper, I heard it. A voice. Help me. I stumbled backward. The chains shook violently. The whole room felt like it was closing in. I ran faster than I ever have in my life. The house wants a new owner. That night, I left. I didn't pack, I didn't look back. But as I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, I saw it through the basement window. A shape, standing, watching, waiting. And just before I drove off, I heard the sound. Chains, dragging, again. The house wasn't done. It had lost one owner. It was just waiting for the next. The face in the static on my TV. The first glitch. It started as a glitch, at least that's what I thought, a flicker on my TV screen. I was home alone, late at night, flipping through channels. Static, just an empty, crackling void. I was about to turn it off when something moved. At first it was just a blur, a shape. Then a face, not a reflection. I froze. It was faint, barely visible through the swirling static. I leaned closer. The face was wrong. The eyes were too wide. The mouth was twisted into something that wasn't a smile, but wasn't a scream either. I blinked, and it was gone. Just static again. I exhaled, laughing nervously. Must have been my imagination. But I left the TV off that night, just in case. The face comes back. The next night, I was watching a movie when it happened again. For a second, the screen flickered. Then, there it was. Closer this time. I grabbed my remote, switched channels, but the face stayed. It was watching me. I turned the TV off. The screen went black. But in the reflection, I still saw the face. A voice from the static. That night, I unplugged the TV. I wasn't taking any chances. But at 3 a.m., I woke up to a sound. Shh! The TV was on. Static filled the screen. My stomach dropped. I had unplugged it. And then beneath the crackling noise, I heard it. A voice. Low, raspy, saying my name. I see you. I ran. I didn't care if it was a dream or a hallucination. I wasn't staying in that room. A horrifying discovery. The next morning, I told my friend about it. She laughed. Old TVs can be weird. It's just interference. But I knew what I saw. So that night, I recorded it, set up my phone in front of the TV, and waited. At exactly 3 a.m., the static flickered, and the face appeared again. But this time, it was smiling, wider than before. I stopped the recording, heart pounding. I needed to see what it captured. But when I played it back, the video was just me, sitting, staring at a blank screen. The final warning: I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I got rid of the TV, left it on the curb. I felt relieved, safe, until that night. At 3 a.m. I woke up. The sound was still there. Shh. But my TV was gone. The sound was coming from my phone. I grabbed it, and on the screen was the face, closer than ever, smiling. I see you. Now I can follow you anywhere. Then the screen went black, and I heard breathing right behind me.